Good day, everybody. It's 12:15 on September 28th, 2025, and it's Sunday. And yes, it seems like we are at a war right now. We are presently in a war. And, well, I guess we have to define on who is we. It's, well, Belarus, Russia, and of course, on the other side, you have Ukraine and Europe, and to a large extent, the United States. Donald Trump has engineered for him and for the United States to be just the one supplying all the weapons on that side, of course. And what I'm referring to is by saying it's that we're at a war is based on statements that came from Merz, the leader of Germany, Chancellor Merz, Friedrich, and of course Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia. And of course there's many others that have said the same thing. I don't know if anybody said that from the United States. Maybe so, maybe so. But you have certain people like this Keith Kellogg, who also is fanning the flames, and he really, really wants it as well. But there is, what kind of a war? I guess we should ask first. You know, it's not a hot war, and it's not a cold war. It's somewhere in between. So it's not as bad as a hot war. It's not even as bad as a cold war. So in that respect, it's in between. I guess it's worse than a cold war. And some people describe it as a hybrid war. I believe Sergei Lavrov was one of the ones that said that. There are people saying it on the, I guess, in the West as well. And there are some that really want a hot war. They very badly want a hot war. Let me first, while I'm looking at this, there's some garbage here. It's normally the birds, like I say. They come here and they put things around. This probably blew over there. I'm just looking over here. There's somebody put a door. It makes me wonder, why did somebody? It's very, strange. The CIA, they like to get involved in seeing what garbage people have. I guess garbage tells a lot about people. So what you're throwing away and what you find in the garbage. As a matter of fact, I was just by our garbage and somebody had a truck and they're unloading a whole bunch of bags. I don't really understand what they're unloading in there. It's some sort of a yellow bags, big yellow, some kind of a writing. I was just looking at it, what the heck is that? It's not their garbage can, but they're filling up our garbage cans. A big amount, a large truck. So that's really something. I don't really understand. You know what I should have done? I should have grabbed that bench, because you never know. People love that bench. Somebody's out walking their dog. Somebody's pushing a baby carriage. Maybe I'll miss it, but I like to walk a little bit too. But look at way out here. I guess these are garbage cans, and somebody's got some doors and a door frame here. Why did they bring it over here? Very strange. Just gonna see that color. You can see the wood grain on there. It's very strange looking doors. I don't know, like a very strange paint or something. Some sort of weird things interest me. I don't know why. But anyway, get back to this war here. Somebody who really, really badly wants a war, obviously, is Zelensky. Zelensky himself. And Zelensky, not necessarily just himself, all of his backers, and his backers in Ukraine. I tell you what, I have my own theories on what's going on, and I'll elucidate them in this video. That I do not really think that Merz and Starmer and Macron and them, that they really do want a hot war. I don't think they do. But I'll get into that. I'll get into my theory about that at all. Anyway, but Zelensky definitely wants a war. He wants to get, obviously, and if there is a war, Starmer has even admitted it, and so many other people have, that they have to get the United States in if they hope to defeat Russia. And then you listen to what Lukashenko said the other day, and he said that if there is a war between, say, Russia, and if Belarus, of course, possibly is pushed into it, that they can't possibly beat the entirety of NATO. And I'm thinking he's referring to, obviously, the United States involved in that, because I don't really know. It looks like when you look at the size of the military, maybe how they're equipped, who knows what that entails. Belarus military is maybe, it's a little bit smaller than Poland, but a little bit bigger maybe than Great Britain, and similar size, I suppose, is supposed to be France. And I would think that for the most part, Belarus probably doesn't have the same kind of air force as some of those. Rafales or whatever they call that from France. I guess that's a pretty poor airplane, and they might have some F-35s. I don't keep track on this stuff. Maybe it's the same with Great Britain. Maybe they have some F-35s. What do they have? The Typhoon, or I don't know if they have Tornadoes, whatever the heck, their airplanes. I think they're a little bit outdated as well. I don't really know so much about the Belarusian Air Force even. They probably have some, I'm sure they have some very good Sukhois. And when they put on display, I think it was like a Su-24s. I just made a video a few days ago, and it looks like a very formidable airplane. It's probably something comparable even to F-16. So I would say whatever planes they do have are probably better than what these other countries have. F-16 is actually still a very formidable airplane, and of course it's been updated a lot of times. And at this point in time, I would even look at F-22 to be better than an F-35, even though what are they saying? It's, I don't know if they call it a 6th generation fighter, the F-35, but it seems to, you have to fly it in the most perfect conditions, and a lot of the stuff doesn't quite work. But anyway, that's not my expertise, and I would say that Russia has a few planes that are, I would say, were better than the F-35 even. Like I said, if everything is optimal, maybe the F-35 is better. But like I said, I'm not a big expert on that. But so I guess some more baby carriages. Let's get on with a little bit more about what I was going to be talking about. And I mentioned yesterday that Merz has ordered billions, I think 2.1 billion or something worth of air-to-air missiles, meaning it has to be fired apparently from an airplane, and its target has to be another airplane, which I don't think that's necessarily has to be true. I'm sure that any sort of air-to-air missile can also be air-to-ground missiles. It doesn't, I mean, it seems to be logical to me, but it's still strange. It's still very strange. But it's not strange when you think about what even Donald Trump said, that a lot of these weapons that they're buying them for Ukraine, to give to Ukraine. So I guess it was 400 of these missiles, and there's even more included, because that's 2.1 billion or something, or I can't remember how many billion, something like that they're paying the United States on this order. And of course, it's not going to be supplied immediately, and obviously Europe is counting on a very long war. They're counting on this to last a long time, and I think Ukraine is too. They're putting factories up, not just for drones in places like Denmark and Germany and wherever, to make more and more drones. And I mentioned yesterday that Ukraine is getting flooded with drones, and the Russians are also talking about that. I was just looking at facts. I wasn't looking at what they said. And of course, now you look at some of these news shows in Russia, and they're also talking about this. A huge amounts of armaments going to Ukraine. So the buildup is going as we speak, even in lieu of a ceasefire. Obviously, they wanted this ceasefire, and they were ready to start flooding Ukraine again with weapons to make another Minsk. Put everything at a ceasefire and then flood Minsk. Flood Ukraine, flood Kiev, just flood them with even more weapons. And there's training of soldiers all over the place. The United States, I guess, is even training. I heard that yesterday. I can't remember from who. Maybe that was Douglas Macgregor. Maybe it was some other Pentagon experts or whatever. And of course, I guess it's located like around 11 miles from the border of Poland, but it's inside of Ukraine, where the United States is running some big training camp to train, and how it was explained is to train the Ukrainians how to kill Russians. And of course that is the big thing anyway. Kaya Kallas had said that, Kaya Kallas, as you remember, and she's on video, as saying that they have to kill more Russian children. I was mentioning, gosh, was it in lieu of talking about 2023, I was even saying, I don't know, it was a long time ago. I think I was calling that the year of the war on children, and of course it's even escalated since then. That was before Israel started massacring tens of thousands of children, and this is and there's child trafficking, and oh man, I don't even want to think about it. It's really some dark stuff. And anyhow, so let's see. I'm always ahead of myself. I'm not even using my notes, and I should, because then I have to skip down the page and wondering if there's something else I missed. But anyway, I said a hybrid war, and a lot of this war is something that, the title that Alex Jones used, the info wars. So a lot of this is info wars. It's a lot of misinformation. And I always quote that title and some of the words in that song from Green Day. What is it called? American Idiot. That the media is basically controls so much. And Ukraine knows this. Ukraine uses the media big time, and of course so does Israel and everything. In Israel, of course, what they did with TikTok here, well, let me say a very, very heavy Israel supporter was Larry Ellison, I guess, who owns Oracle, big supporter of Israel, and of course he is buying the majority shares, I guess, of TikTok, and it's going to obviously become, instead of, it wasn't even pro-Palestine, it was based on what its users are putting up on TikTok, and you would say that led to it appearing to be pro-Palestine, but obviously they're going to be deleting a lot of that stuff. It's not going to be seeing the light of day so much, and a lot more things are going to be pro-Israel from now on. So I don't even see why. Apparently Xi, the leader of China, has given Donald Trump the okay, I don't know, to sell it to Larry Ellison. And China, they don't have a dog in the fight. Israel, Palestine, whatever, I think they would probably lean a lot more towards Palestine, a little bit more humanitarian than, of course, Israel or the United States government. So I don't know why they would go along with that, or I don't know. Maybe they see the fact that people are probably not going to be using TikTok as much. Maybe that is just the Western variety of TikTok. That's what I was assuming, that there are two. And China controls one side, and I was thinking the West the other. I don't really know. I'm kind of thinking about that. So maybe the side we get over here in Belarus and Russia is going to be more Chinese-owned, oriented. I really don't know. I really don't know. It's all guesswork for me. Or maybe China is going to come out with some other sort of a social media platform, and I think there is one. I can't remember what it is called. There is something, and maybe it's going to be going more global. What is the name of that? It just occurred to me just now. But who knows? Maybe that will be taking over more of the people's minds than TikTok. We'll see. So anyway, the drones are really big now. And what I should have mentioned even earlier when I'm talking about merits is now Germany is saying that Russian drones, of course it has to be Russian, it's always going to be Russian, no matter who in the West you're talking to when it's something negative, that the Russian drones are now going over Germany, invading German airspace. And I don't think they have any evidence. It's probably close to what we'll call zero. Just like Denmark or any of these other places, or Poland, there's zero evidence. They just see some drone. And what is that? Is it just some civilian launching a drone and then, see, there's a drone, it must be Russia? It's just like an IED during the some of these wars in the Middle East that Iran did it. Iran, of course, it's an IED. They ran over an IED. It's Iran, and Israel, as you know, when something happens to any Israelis, it's Hezbollah or Hamas, and of course they're backed by Iran. And I don't think they've ever accused the Houthi, though, but a lot of these countries anyway, it's not their objective is to kill Israelis or any Western types of people. It's I think it is mostly designed against weapons and infrastructure, possibly things like that, and frightening things, trying to get Israel to stop genocide, things like that. I don't know how many people in Israel have the Houthis killed. I don't know what it is, like 9 maybe, and Israel has killed many, many thousands, and the United States. So it's kind of strange. I don't know. It seems like the objective in any war is actually to kill the other side, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm not in the minds of Hamas or any of these other organizations. That it doesn't seem like their objective is to kill the other side. Not necessarily. I don't know. So anyway, Germany has nothing to prove on that. And then I guess also at the same time, there was some American spy plane apparently that's stationed somewhere in the Baltic area. Where it took off from, I don't know. But anyway, it had its transponder on, and they have recordings of it doing circles, many circles all over in certain areas of the Baltic. This one plane, and everybody is asking, at least those people that are watching these the news from these transponders. I don't know what these agencies are called. You can find it yourself, and you can watch this stuff online. But what is this American spy plane or a surveillance plane, the recon plane, whatever the heck it is? What is it looking for? It's unclear. The United States is not going to tell. Oh, that's top secret. They're not going to tell you. But are they duped? Is the United States duped? Are they a part of this? I don't have any idea. Are they duped into looking for some sort of a Russian ship? And I think when Denmark accused Russia of flying the drones just a couple of days ago, maybe 2 days ago, over to Copenhagen airport and another airport, they had no evidence, of course. Maybe that is the response to complaints by Denmark, or maybe this is a response to complaints by Germany, and maybe the U.S. is duped into it. In any case, they never found any Russian ship. I think it was Denmark, and they put out in some, what was it called, Ekstrabladet or whatever. I mentioned it yesterday. It might even be some kind of a Bild Zeitung, some sort of a, whatever some of these things, unreliable news sources are putting out. I don't know. But it makes you wonder, was there even any drones at all, or anything? You don't know what to believe anymore any these days. And there's even deep fakes and AI, everything. I'll tell you what, it's just going to get worse. It can't get better. Oh, a young girl going out for a walk with her dog. Nice, sweet little girl. Maybe I can recommend her to the Epstein people. Probably 11 years old. I can't judge anyway. Okay. But anyway, how would Russia get drones to fly over Germany? That was a far stretch to say, how could they get them to fly over Denmark? But now Germany, and it's like, the only way would be somehow from the Baltic, and maybe they're going to start saying it was submarine launched drones, surfaced, send the drones out. China, I guess, I think they have these drones now. They can launch them from submarines. Maybe Russia has those, because as they say, China is helping Russia now. So I don't know. You never know these people. They'll come up with any sort of a thing, but whatever Russia says is a lie, and whatever any country in the West, Denmark or Germany, it's all the truth. It's incredible, because they have a very good track record of telling the truth. Anyway, circles and circles. I don't know. I saw this, and various circles all over a huge area of the Baltic. No Russian ships at all. I'm just wondering if that. I kind of think that there's some civilians doing it, or Ukraine, and it's been known. And you have this film footage and photos of parts of Russian drones. They're put together with duct tape. Do you think Russia's putting these things together with duct tape, and they put it on top of a chicken coop? None of the branches are broken, but somehow this drone landed on top of a chicken coop that was in Poland. I think right off the border of into Poland, and I guess the drone for the most part was all styrofoam, and they had a cone, a piece of a cone from a Russian drone. It probably really was from a Russian drone, and I don't know, it's very shaky evidence. That was the first one, as you know, and then after that, drones here, drones there. I don't know, it sounds like a campaign to me, and I'm getting to the fact of what this is all about, of course, so you have to wait for it. Yeah, okay. Anyway, it's all these countries that are in the Hate Russia Club that are all coming up with this stuff, as we all hear. Remember how the war was started against Iraq, and they had Saddam's imaginary weapons of mass destruction, one bomb to guide them all. Ooh, that pigeon looks like he was doing a kamikaze on me. You saw that? Anyway, maybe it's probably in the footage. I think you're a Russian drone pigeon. Let's see if you can see any bombs on this guy. I think it's a Russian drone pigeon. It must be. They told me that NATO people are telling me that Russia. I think they said Russia has kamikaze dolphins. I think. That's the honest to God truth. They said that. Look at you. The next line of defense, of offense, actually, from the Russians is a kamikaze. Look at him. Look at him. Look at how evil he looks. Look at him. Look at that expression. See? He didn't like what I was saying. Maybe it's a she. How can I assume? Maybe it's a trans. Maybe it's a trans pigeon. Anyway, let's get on to other information here. Trans pigeons. There was a drone, and it was Russian. Trust us. We have no evidence. We have witnesses. So, anyway, Saddam's imaginary weapons of mass destruction. And it's like, I was going to say that, in this case, maybe history rhymes, or history repeats itself. And there was another guy that kind of said the same thing in a certain way. What did he say? He said, there is nothing new under the sun. So a lot of this stuff has happened before, rhyming history, repeating history, Who was that guy that said that? Some guy, I think he came from Bethlehem or something, or Nazareth, somewhere down in that area there. So, anyway, I don't want to get into this stuff too. Anyway, no matter what, you ask this, these things begs the question, for what purpose? For what purpose? And this is the crux of what I was going to get at. Obviously Zelensky, he wants a war. He wants a hot war, and he wants to get more people. He wants his main aim, I guess, is not necessarily yet to get the U.S. Of course, he will take anybody into the war. He'll take any soldiers. He needs people. He wants more weapons. His goal is the defeat of Russia, obviously. He wants to take over parts of Russia. That is not a secret anymore. He wants, obviously, a big swath there. Rostov, he wants Krasnodar. I think maybe even all the way down to Sochi. And he wants Novorossiysk there. And, of course, the whole Donbass. He wants Belgorod. Sumy. He wants huge portions of Russia. And he's like, is that another guy? Is this the same guy? I don't know. Maybe it's number 2. Somebody flew in here. But anyway, he wants a lot of that. He wants to take over that. That is, of course, it's like Adolf Hitler. I mean, it's like Banderites. They're more extreme versions of Nazis. And, I guess Adolf was Nazi light. and the real hardcore ones are the Banderites. And of course, even the Nazis of Germany in those days realized that themselves. Wow, 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 wow. I mean, you just look at history, it's unbelievable. So let's see. So what's the purpose? And cui bono, who does it benefit? It doesn't benefit Russia at all, obviously. You know, them flying drones, why would they do that? You know, why would they even want a war? They don't want, you know, do you think they want a war with NATO? And then Donald Trump just the other day, I mean, his own evidence, he said they're a paper tiger. So if they're a paper tiger, then why do they want to expand the war? You know, it was always kind of, you know, Zelensky's not even that dumb. You know, he has taken pot shots, a few little ones at Belarus, but of course it doesn't benefit him to get another enemy coming from the north. And of course, when that was at the very beginning, and Belarus was used also to stage some, hey, look at this, there's two of them here. It was used to stage, you know, part of the air campaign against Kiev, and of course that was like 1 or 2 days, and after that it was over. And I think maybe Lukashenko said, no, we don't want to get involved in this. I don't know. Anyhow. So, and why would Russia do it over and over again? You know, these drone airspace violations, because it doesn't serve them anything, to be honest with you. Oh, it's surveillance to see what capabilities they have from these countries. Well, you know, I mean, they have a thing called satellites, and Russia has tremendous optics. As a matter of fact, they have just as good, if not better, optics, believe it or not, this is honest to God truth, than the West does. Towards the middle of, let me just tell you this, within World War II, Russia got the East German sector, and the East German sector had the Zeiss. They had Zeiss optics, Zeiss Jena. And they took a lot of that technology, and of course it was used in Russia and all that. Believe it or not, it was even in Kiev. They have cameras called Kiev cameras. As a matter of fact, I even have one, and the optics are phenomenal. They are, you know, I remember when I was buying cameras in those days, just some back in the late 1980s, the optics of Russia had optics, and of course these Kiev cameras have optics better than anything that the West had. That includes Japan or the USA or anything. Their optics were superior. And now I don't really know, and they have digital things and things like that, but make no mistake, they have tremendous optics, and these optics obviously are also in satellites. And the United States has maybe some zooming qualities, and they can look down at you, and I don't know if they can, they can maybe read this text that I'm looking at right now. Could they read that? It's very possible. They've got such technology you wouldn't even believe. X-ray technology, I've mentioned it even sitting on this bench, I guess, and not too many videos ago, that they could actually look through various floors. I think they can look through 3 floors and see what somebody is doing in the basement from the head view. They can see that somebody is walking around inside of a basement, like X-raying through the floors of a building from satellite communications. And we had some wondrous things that I thought were wondrous things back in the 1980s, you know, and that was my unit. My unit was involved with those things. And I've even told you about those before. I won't even go into it because that's not the point of this video. But there's some shocking things. So anyway, Russia has some of these things as well. So anyway, so that's, I don't know, it's not even worth getting into that stuff. It's just absolutely phenomenal things. But like I'm saying, who does this stuff benefit? It doesn't really benefit Russia to send drones over these places. They can see most of this stuff from satellite anyway. They're not going to be dropping any bombs from these drones, even though Ukraine is getting these rotary bomb things now from Taiwan via Poland. I mentioned it yesterday. I said that they're getting drones Poland is buying drones and getting them to Ukraine, and obviously it's sort of reverse engineering, and I would think that Ukraine would be able to do this. And they have like a rotary chamber inside with lots of bombs, and it turns, dropping bombs one after the other, bomb, 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 you know. And like I said, it's like the cylinder in a gun, the chambers and all that, you know, one after the other. And you know, I don't know how many bombs they can drop. 20 bombs and a huge big payload. I mean, the bombs are enough to kill maybe 5 people at maximum. I don't know. They're not such huge bombs, but they got many of them. I don't know. Maybe there's 10 bombs in each drone, and when you drop 3 of these bombs in a group of 15, they're all dead, I guess. So let's keep going anyway. But Russia would not be over and over again flying these drones, you know, after somebody sights one of them. So it's actually, and Russia has said that they have not flown any drones, and they said there's flights over some part of Estonian airspace, which is over the Baltic Sea anyway. They said they were not in violation of international airspace, so it's a lie by Estonia probably. You know, unless they can come up with some proof, which apparently they can't. You know, Russia did not turn off their transponders, so why don't they show us the transponder path? Oh, they didn't do that. They just showed you a map with some dotted line. It wasn't the transponder information. Why don't they show that to us? Very strange, isn't it? Anyway, like cui bono, who does it benefit? Well, guess who it does benefit? It benefits the West to be doing this. And how does it benefit the West? Obviously, I told you how it benefits Zelensky and Ukraine. But what about Europe? Why would Europe benefit from coming up with this stuff saying Russia, Russia, Russia? You know? And I don't think that the main goal, not even maybe possibly of Ukraine, is to get the United States in the war of that. It's obviously just at this point to get Europe involved in it. And Europe, well, how does Europe benefit from that? Europe would obviously know they're not going to benefit from a war with Russia. They're going to lose an awful lot. You would think so. But I'll tell you what Europe wants, they want the threat of war. They benefit tremendously from the threat of war, as long as they can keep it a threat of war. They know for a fact that Russia is not going to attack based on accusations of the West accusing Russia of invading space. Actually, that is very, very safe. In fact, that is probably, you know, grounds for Russia to back off even more, and maybe even stay further away from the border. So that is actually to their favor, very much to their favor. To the favor of the West, obviously, but the West will benefit from the threat of war. And how is that? Well, as you all know, Donald Trump has forced them into going from whatever their percentage of their GDP was supposed to be aimed at their defense, or in truth, maybe offense, to 5%, so that they should all increase their contribution to NATO to 5%. And Donald Trump, maybe he wants to back out of this a little bit, and maybe he's sending some fake signals. A lot of people are thinking that. Colonel Douglas Macgregor thinks so. And I think maybe Donald Trump is actually trying to back out of a real hot war, but Donald Trump is all for the military-industrial complex. He is all into supplying weapons to Europe. And I think maybe a lot of these people in Europe think that that's a signal that Donald Trump wants to be involved in the war. I kind of sometimes suspect that myself, you know, but at what level? Maybe he really does not want to get the United States involved in sending troops there, but he is obviously very much in favor of sending weapons there, you know, to make money. So money trumps all. And does Donald Trump want to stop the killing? Absolutely not. He doesn't really give a crap about the killing. That's just something for PR. Said, oh, I want to stop the killing. That's why I'm giving Europe a huge amount of bombs to kill more Russians because I want to stop the killing. No, actually, that's just a byproduct. Donald Trump wants to make money, and it's similar in what we see in Israel. Obviously, Donald Trump doesn't give a crap about the killing. He doesn't give one crap whatsoever about the killing. Donald Trump, he personally wants a peace prize, obviously, and apparently he's going to get it. I would see everybody's in the Nobel Peace Prize Committee is going to look at and say, who better to get it than Donald Trump? All these leaders are recommending Donald Trump. Maybe the ultimate is to get Vladimir Putin and, of course, maybe even Belarus to recommend Donald Trump for a peace prize. And what is it? It's symbolic. You know, Donald Trump doesn't care about the money. I don't know how much money they get, but I don't know. You know, Donald Trump is there for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is there for Donald Trump's ego. So, you know, he saw Barack Obama get a peace prize for doing absolutely nothing whatsoever, except for, you know, spewing off his mouth a little bit. And, you know, Barack Obama did nothing for peace, nothing whatsoever. If anything, Barack Obama increased the wars. How many wars did he get going, and how many children did he kill with bombing soccer games, and people that he killed bombing weddings and all that? So when he became president, the peace president, yeah. So anyway, and not only that, a lot of these politicians, when they get this war, or when they get this money flowing in, you know, they get the people scared. Oh, Russia's out to get us. Russian drones, Russia. And, you know, people get scared, and they're more willing to give up or pay higher taxes to feed the war machine. And what is better? What is better for political contributions than the military-industrial complex? Absolutely nothing is better. These people got a lot of money. They want to make a lot of weapons and all that sort of thing. Everybody knows that. Ask Lindsey Graham about that. A lot of other people as well. You know, and the banks get happy because a lot of the money has to go through the banks and all that. So everybody's happy except for those that get the bombs and things dropped on them, and maybe the taxpayer who has to pay for that. You get less benefits. Maybe your pay has to go down because your paycheck gets a little bit lower as you get another increase at percentage that you have to give to the government in order to pay more bombs. I mean, technically speaking, you can ask the Americans about that and how their standard of living was maybe in the 1960s, certain times in the 1960s, or say the 1950s, when things were really booming in America, and then certain times, you know, things started going down. Anyhow, so, but it does seem insane. It does seem insane anyway, because, you know, you're flirting with disaster, and we've seen already that there's some kind of a deficiency in brain mass in a lot of the European leaders, and I don't know. Do you think that's really smart, or you think that's dumb? I don't really know. It seems like if the people start to figure this stuff out, they're going to stop voting for some of these jokers. You know, like look at the Green Party. They become the war party. You know, I mean, green used to be something that you look at nature about, and you know, for military uniforms you wear green because you want to blend in with nature. And maybe I guess that's what the Green Party is doing now. They're blending in with nature, but in fact they're the war party in Germany right now. They're the ones that are calling for more war than any other party, I think. Well, maybe the CDU, CSU, you know, Merz, Friedrich, komm, ganz mit mir, ich geb dir oben ein Ei, auch ein Ei. Can't remember the words. Anyway, it's Plattdeutsch. It's not Hochdeutsch. So it's a little bit different. It's Tanz mit mir instead of Tanz. Anyway, forget it. I don't know. It makes me wonder sometimes. I'm wondering if some of these European leaders, you know, like Baerbock is a very good example, or Ursula von der Leyen with her computer chips out of the washing machines. I'm kind of suspecting that Hollywood or Bollywood or somebody's gearing up to make part 2 of the movie Idiocracy, and these people are all casting for it right now, trying to become the next main characters in the movie called Idiocracy. If you guys haven't seen that one, it's pretty interesting. You know. Anyway. Idiocracy Part 2. Yeah. Money for political survivability. I guess that was the point I was trying to get at. Many of the polls are saying, political polls are saying, like Starmer and Macron, Merz, I'm sure as well. Merz, I guess that was a big sham. It turns exactly right after the election. The polls were pointing out that the favored political candidate was Alice Weidel of the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland party. But yet the polls before, I think, were saying Merz, whatever, I don't know. And it looks like there's a scandalous thing. There's so much scandalism in Germany as well, in the press, as has been pointed out, like that Eugen, sorry, I keep forgetting the name. Uta, you know the name. Some guy that wrote that book, Gekauften Journalisten, and it's like, and I was looking all over for that book. Obviously, they took it out of print. They don't want anybody to get it. I should have tried to find when I was over there, but it was wasting too much time going to various bookstores trying to find that book. And anyway, but it talks about how the United States at that time were buying the journalists with huge benefits, money, vacations, and all that, in order to write stories that put the United States in a favorable light. I don't know, does that sound familiar? I don't know. Never heard of that country called Israel. Anyway, and they're using the press. Boy, again, Green Day, country controlled by the media. They're talking about the United States, but it's the whole West in general. It makes me wonder if that's even the case. It is the case over here. You have people from Poland. Poland even admits that they control a lot of the minds of the Belarusian people. They've done a really good job about that. And Lukashenko is now really fighting to try to fight back. But once these people are sold, they go into the universities, and it's sort of like, you can even look back to Socrates. I've even said that before. Controlling the minds of our youth. I mean, you go back into ancient times. It's incredible how the same thing, it's there's nothing new under the sun, baby. Wow. So Green Day, American Idiot. I love that song. I don't know why. I love the music of it too, and the truth that's involved in there. So let's keep going here, instead of me and my emotions getting me off track here. A lot of these people, I'll tell you what, their opinion polls are very low, and I was coming up with some sort of a theory, you saw, and I was wondering, why is Macron and some of these other countries, why are they approving a Palestinian state? And a lot of this, just like the Nobel Peace Prize, this is nothing but symbolism. It's just symbolic. Sometimes it does matter. Sometimes symbols do matter, but this is just symbolic. And of course, Israel got a little bit ticked off, but it's only symbolic, like I say, and it is for Macron and these people to gain maybe some favorability from their constituents, when at the same time they really want a war. I mean, they really want to prepare. They want the preparations for a war against Russia, to steer a whole bunch of money, because that's really what matters. What do they say? The money walks and the bullshit walk. Bullshit. Wait a minute. Bullshit. Wait, money talks and bullshit walks. Anyway, a little bit of a Biden there for a minute. That's more of a Bushism. George Bush would do that kind of stuff, I think. Come up with some things. There was some Freudian slip, I guess, also in the United Nations. I can't remember which leader said that, but anyway, they said something about a plague or whatever. You guys probably caught that, if you're really news hands even more than I am. But it wasn't anything that I wanted to put out, so I didn't even remember it. Okay, so maybe they want some kind of a rescue a little bit. Maybe just in their opinion polls, but if any kind of vote comes up, these people are going to lose anyway. Starmer is just way down. I don't think people are going to buy that. Boy, who knows, when is TikTok going to be handed over, and when is the purging going to start there. Wow. I wonder if they're going to have a success like Poland had against the Belarusian people in controlling the minds of the youth, like Socrates was doing, apparently. Wow. Really incredible. Incredible. You can even go back to Gilgamesh, you know, the Epic of Gilgamesh. What is that? 4,000 years BC. That's absolutely astounding things, and that is a lot of that was missing, but they reconstructed a lot of it. It's just much like the Bible, like even the New Testament. Some things that were missing, they just kind of ad-libbed and put it in there. You know, very, very, very much by the Old Testament. That's one reason why I don't like to look at these things, and there's a tremendous wisdom in the Old Testament and the New Testament and things. And I do believe in Jesus, but I don't believe that God wrote any of the Bible. It was written by human beings, and but it was inspired by God, somebody told me. And then what is it, Charlie Kirk said that God wrote the Bible. I tell you, Charlie, I don't find in there, you know, whether, you know, God writing down his references and stuff, you know, and God is a real estate agent, and he gave Palestine to the Israelis, and I tell you, that's a bridge too far for me. So I just don't buy into that stuff. And you know, there's so much, it's like Christians don't like me because I don't agree that stuff is ironclad truth. I only look at some of the things that Jesus said that undeniably make sense, and you cannot prove them wrong. And I just look for those things, and I wonder if sometimes some people misquoted Jesus, you know, by accident or on purpose. But you know, when you see something like "know them by their fruits," that's an indisputable uttering that is absolutely true, and I don't think there's any way you can prove that wrong, you know. And some people, you know, sometimes good intentions go wrong or whatever, like somebody that does have good intentions, but there's something, you know, maybe you did something wrong, you know, and it still proves the fact that somehow your fruits were wrong there. And nothing is new under the sun. I've said that already now 3 times in this video. And Jesus talked in a particular way by saying nothing new under the sun and know them by their fruits. He said it in those ways so that nobody can misinterpret it. No matter what happens, 2,000 years, 5,000 years from now, no matter what language it is translated into, it is going to be true. It's going to have the same meaning. And I find that to be absolute, total brilliance. And that is why I have this particular love of Jesus. And yet, people that call themselves Christians say, I am not a Christian. And I'm kind of starting to wonder. I hear these different definitions of what is a Christian. I don't even call myself a Christian necessarily. I have respect for the Muslims. I have respect for all these people. It's just very strange. I don't know. In some ways, maybe that makes me more Christian than anybody that calls himself a Christian. That includes Charlie Kirk, by the way. So that's all I want to say about this right now. So, you know. Anyway, where was I? I got there. What is it? What is that word? Biden. I'm getting Bidened out. I was tooting my own horn there for a second. So, let's see. Anyway, I already said a lot of this stuff. You know, that these politicians are trying to steer a lot of money into the military-industrial complex, and maybe a lot of these politicians believe, I am such a great person that if I can steer this money that comes into my coffers and makes me the leader, Donald Trump probably feels the same way, that the whole United States or the whole country benefits from my flawless leadership. You know? And most politicians, at least they give you the impression that they believe they have never made a mistake in their life. You know, oftentimes if you are a politician and you get out there and you say you've made a mistake, well, that's the end of your political career. People like me or whatever, well, I don't know, if I really think maybe I've made a mistake. No, I make mistakes. And I probably think of them after thinking of them for 5 seconds, but I'm not going to air them like dirty laundry on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe Ukraine will get a hold of them and use them against me. So anyway, but Israel, if you want to talk about, look at this, I'm getting attacked by a plastic bag that somebody had their shawarma in, their doner. It's coming my way. I hope there's not a bomb in there somehow. I think it's Russia that did that. So anyway, Donald Trump, just like anybody else, they want to bring about a defeat of Russia. And of course, to bring about a strategic defeat, what better way than to bring an economic defeat? You know, get everybody to stop buying Russian oil. You know, the gas station that masquerades as a country. And of course, the chief income of Russia is obviously going to be oil and natural gas. And, you know, Donald Trump, you know, he's not any better, not any nicer than any of these other politicians that are, you know, Donald Trump is just, he's just a little bit more of a nicer guy in the club of hate Russia. So, oh no, somebody's dropping pine needles on me. Maybe it's Russia again. Europe, they said they want a war. They want a war with Russia. They actually have come right out and said they want a war with Russia, you know, long about the 2030. They say 2029, 2030. And Russia, of course, takes a lot of these threats seriously. And Russia, of course, has the Orishnik. And the West acts like Russia has never said they have the Orishnik. They never acknowledge what Orishnik does. Who would know that better than the factories that got bombed in Ukraine one time, I guess somewhere in the Donbass, and turned everything to powder. Human beings as well, and yet has no radiation. It is, and of course it goes, what, Mach 10 or something? It is some of the fastest missiles ever made, and Russia is mass producing them right now. In a lot of ways, this is a game changer. You know, I don't know if it might eliminate the need for tactical nukes, although Russia probably will still have long-range nukes, the big powerful ones, because, you know, they got some powerful people that, you know, they probably do want to drop them on Russia, maybe on areas where they don't have any natural resources where the West can come in and start mining them, lithium and gold and whatever else, uranium. So anyway, just keep that in mind. But anyway, this desire to start this war in 2030, and you know, it's even possible. You can look at Europe. Maybe they do. Maybe they're cruising for a bruising. Adolf Hitler, he didn't want to start World War II until actually 1945. That's about the time that is the time that the World War II ended. But instead, it started in 1939, and and of course it was based on his own actions. His invasion of Poland, I guess, is the biggest one. You know, the invasion of the Sudetenland, and those people were cheering Adolf and the Nazis when they were coming through. They were German speaking and all that. And then, of course, they needed to. Russia need. I mean, that's not a Freudian slip. Adolf needed to secure an oil supply, so that's when he invaded Norway, and that's the first time they used airborne troops, and that was big news. And right after that, of course, I don't even know why he got Holland. He invaded Holland, and with very few people, you know, and he did it. You know, I mean, very few people. What I mean partly by that is he parachuted mannequins all along the borders, at the border points, and Holland sent their troops out to the borders, you know, and only to find that there are store mannequins, you know. I wonder if they used any naked mannequins, you know, not wearing any clothes, or maybe they put some military clothes on beautiful women mannequins with breasts and dropped them all over around the borders, and the radio was going crazy, and they were sending troops all over from one point to the other. And meanwhile, I think it was like 80 special forces troops they dropped on the capital of Netherlands, and they defeated Netherlands, not with just 80. They had some troops involved at some places, but mostly it was those 80 troops that defeated, that took over Netherlands entirely. And that was even elucidated by B.H. Liddell Hart, a British historian. And I used to have a book, and apparently somebody nicked it. I guess is what the British say. They nicked it. It was a British book. B.H. Liddell Hart, Sir. He was, I guess he was, maybe what do you call it, canonized by Queen Elizabeth or something like that. And he did give a lot of credit to the German military at that time. Anyway, that's stuff I'm going too far into. Let me keep tangents, more tangents. So let's keep going. 1939, September 3rd. When Hitler invaded Poland, of course, just a few days later is when France and Britain, of course, declared war on Nazi Germany. And the United States entered the war on December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. And very strange that right around that, well, a little bit before that time, 6 months earlier than that, about 6 months, that's when Adolf attacked the Soviet Union. Makes you wonder, why in the heck did he do that? But anyhow, okay. But anyway, the U.S. entered against Japan and eventually went in against Germany as well. And very late in the war, by the way, very late, just a few years. And anyway, but actually the United States, I have to, I mentioned things about a lot of the supplies that the Soviet Union was using against Nazi Germany, which helped to actually, you have to be honest, it helped the Soviet Union defeat Nazi Germany. That, so the U.S. helped a little bit. And like Donald Trump will put it backwards and saying that the Soviet Union helped a little bit when it's actually backwards. So, and that's the honest to God truth. Oh, just see that. Okay, what else happened? Today, big vote in Moldova. By the way, that was my neighbor right there. Big vote in Moldova. The present leader, Maya Sandu, if that's her name, the young lady, she's banned many of the opposition parties already, obviously, and she put a lot of the leaders in jail and doing all sorts of things to make sure that she wins. And of course, it's with the help of Ursula von der Pirate, lazy, crazy, van der Leyen. Very cunning lady, very cunning. A lot of these people are stupid, but they're cunning. They're cunning. I've got a cunning plan. That's part of Blackadder, I guess, right? Oh, I've come up with a cunning plan. I gotta watch that again sometime. Anyhow, so they got this cunning plan, and some of these things are pretty, but they're gonna work. They worked already. And they did it in other elections, of course, to make sure that Maya Sandu, they did it in the president election, like they sent, the vast majority of the Moldovans that are expatriates living outside of the country, of course, I've mentioned this, is in Russia. Vast majority, I don't know, I don't know how many are in, maybe it is in Europe, I'm not sure. But anyway, they have massive amounts in Russia. And, but they sent like, I don't know, 700,000 ballots, to Europe. And I think it was over 70 voting stations. I mean, or 700 voting stations all over Europe, so that the Moldovans could vote in the presidential elections, because she knew that most of them are going to be pro-EU party. And they sent only 10,000, for nearly 1 million people, 1 million Moldovans maybe living in Russia. They sent only 10,000 ballots for the entire country of Russia, and they only had it in 2 voting stations. And and Russia is vastly bigger. It's, I don't know, maybe you can put, how many of Europe's can you put in Russia? Maybe 5. And so they made sure that there's not going to be many votes for the opposition parties in the presidential election. They're doing the same sort of a deal absolutely right now for the parliamentary elections. And not only that, Transnistria, there's a lot of Moldovans there, and they have Moldovan citizenship, and they are mostly pro-Russian. So, and they even have photo evidence and video evidence of this. Bridges and the highways that go from Transnistria to Moldova are blocked. They have big semi-trucks there. And people, they would either have to get out of their cars and walk. It's getting colder over here now. I don't know if that has any bearing on what's going on down there in Moldova and Transnistria or not. But anyway, these people are going to have to walk a long distance, miles and miles and miles, if they do want to vote. So they're trying to block anything that's going to be pro-opposition anyway, banning the parties, making sure they're not on the ballot. They're doing absolutely everything to make sure that she is going to, they're going to win the parliamentary elections as well. And no, they don't interfere in the vote. No, the West doesn't do it. It's Russia that does it. I don't know how. There's no evidence how Russia does it, but believe me, they do it somehow. Maybe it's witchcraft or something. Maybe they send pigeons. Maybe these pigeons have some sort of a hypnotism or something like that. You've seen it right here. I've showed it to you. I've showed you the evidence. These pigeons, there's something about these pigeons. Anyway, you guys all saw it. That's evidence. So, gosh damn. Anyway, they're going to guarantee a win. Unfortunately, I'll tell you what, it would be amazing if she actually even lost on this. I guess it's a very, very, very important election, and it probably is going to be what determines the future of Moldova from this point on, this election on this day. Wow. And Moldova is being geared towards being another, I wouldn't say another front, but another weapon to be used against Russia in the Hate Russia Club. Wow. So a lot of this stuff is really incredible. And you see what's going on right now in Serbia. They are staging massive, violent uprisings and things against the present government of Serbia. And of course, Serbians are very much pro-Russian, but they're going to make sure that they can put in the anti-Russian people in the government, and trying to make the government abdicate and things. Similar is going on in Slovakia. This is really incredible, but yet the Russians are the bad guys. I don't know. You can, you know why my videos do not get that much exposure on YouTube, and I just now told you why. This is information that they don't really want to have put out, and I don't know. Believe it if you will, or don't believe it. So anyhow, so let's say a little bit about Hamas. They're being pressured to, in Donald Trump language, give up all their cards, to give up these 20 or so hostages that are remaining. That they gave up a lot of the hostages already, as you know. I think there's about 20. I don't really know how many. Not so many. And they have to keep moving these hostages around, otherwise they'll get bombed by Israel themselves. And it's absolutely incredible. And so in other words, give up all your cards. And you know what's happened in the past. Every single time, whenever, when there's ever some sort of a peace proposal, it's always, for some odd reason, that the Palestinians have to give up something first, and then the Israelis are supposed to reciprocate with some agreement that they made in return for that. And it's really strange that after the Palestinians, whether they're Gazans or West Bank people, after they fulfill their part of the agreement, the Israelis always renege on it. They renege on their side, And oftentimes, there was a time, and I don't think Israel's been using this lately, but what they were doing, at least, you have to be an older person to realize this. Israel was saying, okay, we'll deal with you. We'll go into peace negotiations with you, Palestinians, but we have preconditions. First, you have to do this, that, and the other thing, and then we will negotiate with you. And of course, the preconditions are always the things that what Israel wants anyway. That is what they want the most. So Israel gets what they want, and then of course they don't go into negotiations at all. Or they go into negotiations and then they disagree. And it happens over and over and over again, And obviously it's because Israel, they have all the weapons. They have fighter jets, they have bombs, they have everything. And the United States will give them everything they want, all the tanks they want, all the fighter jets, all the bombs, all the weapons, all the money, everything. They get everything. It's amazing that the Palestinians, what remains of them, have held out until now. These people, they need to get some kind of a prize, a resistance prize. I have no idea. absolutely tremendous people. And a lot of these people and the Palestinians, you know, they even show these signs of forgiveness. There are children, there are small children that have had their legs blown off by the Israelis, and they're not even bitter against the Israelis. You know, they just want this all to stop. You know, they want to see their friends that do have legs have a chance in life, and just to live what they have remaining. And it's very much like Belarus and Russia. And Lukashenko has said many times about these provocations that are coming from the West. He says, why don't they just leave us alone? Why don't they just leave us alone? So, anyway. Satan Yahoo, and he doesn't really even give a crap about these hostages anyway. The only thing he cares about is the hostages as a tool for public opinion, which is turning against him. You know, him and his party. I don't know. What a crazy world. The world is filled with nothing but misinformation and corruption and everything else. And I tell you what, it's getting colder outside nowadays, and I might be switching to having my studio a little bit on the inside. The room that I would actually be broadcasting from is for the most part finished now. It looks pretty nice, and I don't know. We'll see. So stay tuned. Again, I have a 1 hour and 6 minute video or whatever. Seems to always last this long. So anyway, everybody, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.